In our last session, we investigated the role that the setting plays in shaping characters. We thought about the kind of place Will's in. We thought about the particular mood or atmosphere and how that affects him. It's like he's led away from his inner moral compass by the pressures of this place. I'm using all of these words for a reason. Sometimes when you're reading, it feels like a place has a particular mood, and you can give the exact word to it, like grim or desolate or forbidding. Other times, you just have a sense that you may not have the exact words for, but it's kind of atmosphere. Maybe things don't feel right, like in a horror movie. Readers, today I want to teach you that when characters seem torn, like when they're acting one way on the outside and a different way on the inside, it's sometimes because they're being pulled in different directions. You can consider the ways that the pressures of a place might be pulling them away from their inner compass. Okay, so I want you to think about the inside versus the outside. Okay, so watch me do this work. We're going to actually go back to a part of the story that we already read, just a small part where I remember Will being torn. Okay. This is when Mike tracks him down and says he wants to fight him. So right here where the arrow is pointing. All right, so I'm going to read this. "I hear you want to fight me," he said. "That's right," I said. I'll meet you after school." And then Will goes on to say, so remember, we're trying to pay attention to how does Will act on the inside versus the outside. "I'll be there." Okay, so outside, so far he's acting really tough. Then he walks away, and I discovered two interesting things about myself. The first was the idea of fighting terrified me, and the second was that in moments of extreme fear, my body produced ice cold sweat. Okay, so on the inside, Will is terrified. He is really, really scared. But on the outside, he says, "That's right, I'll be there." And he acts like he wants to fight Mike on the outside. But obviously, that's not how he feels on the inside. So I want to think about, why is he feeling this way? Like, why is he acting this way? I mean, could it have anything to do with the kind of school that he's in? Based on what we noticed in gym class and the lunchroom, this 8th grade has become kind of a tough place. And that might account for the inconsistency of Will's thoughts and actions. It's the kind of school where you have to be tough and cool. So Will can't say like, "Hey man, sorry, that was a misunderstanding," or, "I've been kind of a jerk lately and sorry about that. Let's be friends." This isn't that kind of place. It's not a place where he can say, "Sorry, I don't want to fight you." So he's torn. He's torn from his inside and acting a different way than he feels on the inside, on the outside. He's all this inner conflict, but he's got to keep a cool exterior to maintain his superior popularity with his friends. So do you see how I focused on just one small moment when a character's torn, where he seems to feel differently on the inside than he acts on the outside? It could be a moment when he thinks one thing and says something else, or maybe he feels one thing and does something that doesn't really go with this feeling. I found a moment that showed inconsistency, asking how could the pressures of this place account for some of the character's inconsistency. All right, so I bet a lot of you are reading books where the character might feel torn or pressured or influenced by the place that they find themselves in. They might act in a way that they feel are contrary to their own desires, or like how their moral compass. So, for example, whenever I was reading The Hunger Games, Katniss, when she's in the arena, she does not want to kill people. That's not who she is. She's not a murderer. But this place won't let her survive if she doesn't. Remember, the one person's left standing in the Hunger Games. Okay. So think of the book that you're reading. Think of a moment or a situation where your character feels torn from the inside to what's going on the outside. Do they act differently on the outside than they feel on the inside? Okay, so I want to show you a thing that you can do whenever you're working in your notebook. You might, for example, you could set up a T-chart and you could put the headings, like how your characters act internally and the ways that they act externally. So you might be writing notes, you might be writing some Post-its, and as you're writing, you might start to notice that the inside is different from the outside, or you might go back in a part of your book where you remember that happening. So it could look something like this, or you could type this up in your slide in your digital notebook if that's what you're using. So on the inside, my character, here's all the examples of how my character feels on the inside and how that is completely different from how they act on the outside. Okay, so this could be an example of what you could do in your notebook. All right, so we're going to add this work to our repertoire. We have our building of how to investigate the influence of setting on characters. I think it's going to help you see the influence of the setting on characters in your novels more specifically. So be extra alert if you notice these kinds of character inconsistencies in the next few days so that we can test this theory. Remember, you can use this anchor chart and our anchor chart from Bend 1 when we were thinking deeply about characters. You can always go back to use these anchor charts to help you set your own reading work. I want you to be ambitious in 2 ways. Set yourself enough work to keep you fully engaged for about half an hour. And also, don't slide into the easy, familiar work. I want you to challenge yourself to do new work.